When a cyber attack hits, who you call first matters. Ever notice how most organizations only figure out they need a crisis plan after the crisis hits? We're about to walk through what actually happens when ransomware locks down a hospital at 2 a.m. on a Saturday. And the spoiler is that a panic call to your IT guy first really isn't the power move many are relying on for it to be. Nick Morrison joins us from Kentucky's Office of Homeland Security. He's here to break down why the first call you make during a cyber attack could save you not only a significant amount of money, but weeks and weeks of chaos. We're talking actual scenarios, not theoretical nonsense. And this isn't about buying more tools or toys. It's about knowing who to call when the lights go out. So let's get into it. Nick, sir, welcome. I appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me. Like I said, happy to do this with you guys in our office. We love partnerships like this. Get to put faces to names, and hopefully everybody gets on the pushing in the right direction here. But like David said, I'm a cybersecurity analyst for our office. I have a pretty good background in system administration, network engineering, infrastructure engineering, so pretty practiced. We're hoping we can get the entire state of Kentucky on board and pushing all in the right direction here.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So tell us about so many people that I talk to, and now that I've gotten to know you guys, they don't even realize that we have a fusion center right here. So tell us about your office and your team and what all it entails, because it's things far bigger than just cybersecurity.
Sure. So I'll start with sort of the why nobody knows. So a lot of the stuff we deal with tends to be in the dark. Some of it's locked behind security clearances and other things like that. So it's not so much stuff you want to have, on the forefront stuff. It's not stuff that
you're
I'd
not
say
throwing it on TikTok, is what
exactly.
You're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
We're not putting it on TikTok. It's not going to be. We're not publishing on YouTube or anything like that.
Right.
But in addition to cybersecurity, our office deals with critical infrastructure, counterterrorism. Those are two of the really big topics, especially critical infrastructure nowadays. Call it. Let me think of where to go with that. Good thing we're recording, right?
Yeah, no, but I mean, let me ask you this way: with the office, you also have teams in place that get involved when organizations sustain a cyber attack, right after the fact.
Absolutely. Teams, we try to call our office as sort of like we try to put it all in one big team, right? So you don't have to reach out to a bunch of separate organizations. Just not, let's make sure we have contacts with FBI or anything like that. You can come to our office, and then we have built all those relationships. So we have relationships with CISA, with FBI, local PDs. That way you can come to our office, and this can be the contact point. You're in Kentucky, get in contact with the Fusion Center, have a relationship with us. That's one of the most important things. Love having relationships. We want to talk to people. It's not something that's, just call us when you need us, or, just put it in your back pocket. We want to exchange intelligence, build a relationship with each other, because that helps the entire state push in the right direction.
Yeah, the public-private partnership is really key, right?
Exactly.
And the sharing of intelligence, the sharing of data, it absolutely helps everybody, because the same threat actors that are acting, you guys have intel on that we might not be privileged to know, but you'll be able to give us advice as we're sharing data too.
Exactly.
And I think that's where the benefit is. So yeah, let's kind of get into it. Let's talk about some of the statistics, because as we were preparing for this, I was kind of blown away. Like, the statistics really support, I mean, our belief, your belief, our belief is organizations will benefit by getting in touch with groups like yours ahead of time, like having it in the system. Because what I've found in our experience is, by the time it gets to the point in the heat of the moment and they're contacting like the FBI for the first time, their need is for the FBI to spring into action or to help them do something. And in the beginning, they have to be like, well, who are you? What is your infrastructure like? What is the attack? They have to get all that information, the context first, right? And so, like, the idea is clearly like, have a collaboration, have a partnership you are on their side. You're on the client side. So having everybody on the same page ahead of time, should something happen, you're in their database. They know who you are, right? And then when we were looking at the statistics, it absolutely backs that up, right? Like the data is there that shows it is really beneficial to do this. Law enforcement involvement, reduced breach costs by about $1 million and shortened containment time by weeks. That was IBM's threat report from 2024. Now, keep in mind for the small and mid-sized businesses, the total cost of breaches isn't in the multi-millions, but it is in the several $100,000, right?
Oh, it's a significant
And
margin.
it is,
Absolutely.
and the same percentage of benefits still applies in the small and mid-sized organizations. So I didn't
Absolutely.
want everybody to just say that, look at that $1 million number and think, well, that doesn't apply to us. Well, yeah, it does, because it's not about the dollar amount. It's about the percentage of benefit by having things and preparing. And then
Exactly.
the same report showed 63% of organizations that contacted law enforcement even avoided paying ransom, which I know this is true because I've seen it firsthand. The FBI is very good at vetting out, fake ransomware claims. There's a lot of ransomware demands and ransoms that actually are very negotiable, but they just
Absolutely.
don't, people don't know. They're not used to that. They don't live in that environment, right? Most SMB leaders don't, download the Tor browser and get on a Tox channel and
Exactly.
talk
Yeah.
with a Russian ransomware gang all the time, right? So, like having people that are experienced in that.
And even in that same vein there, talking ransomware, a lot of times people are surprised, but I mean, the FBI deals with ransomware all the time. Like if you have an actual ransomware, they might already have the encryption key for you, and
Right.
then you don't have to. That cancels the whole
Exactly.
game out exactly. And they're like,
Yeah.
"Wow, I can't believe it." But I mean, you have these relationships. The FBI gets a ton of input from everywhere. You
Right.
might be out of a situation very quickly with that relationship.
Yeah. It's going to be the same encryption key as three other, right, organizations just like you, but they might be in other states, right? But
Exactly.
your local FBI group can access that and come help you. Oh yeah,
Exactly.
really good point. Really good point. Obviously, faster identity and containment time, and your office. So your office actually acts almost like as the main point of contact, right? Like the Fusion, the quarterback for it.
Exactly.
So get to know you guys, and then depending on what happens, right?
Hmm.
Then you guys can help out, right?
Exactly.
I mean, especially what if it involves critical infrastructure or terrorism or something like that? Like, it's good to know you guys, right? Like have a bat phone right to you guys ahead of time
Exactly.
is
That's. I
really
mean,
it's really key, isn't it?
absolutely. Just relationships. That's what we're looking for. I mean,
Yeah,
it says in our name, intelligence, Kentucky Intelligence Fusion Center. I mean,
right.
at the end of the day, we're trying to pull the intelligence for everybody. So it's not,
Absolutely.
nothing siloed. Everybody can you can call up the Fusion Center and say, we need X, Y, Z from you guys, and then we can have that. And it's not a relationship where, like you said, you're starting from square one. You have to meet everybody, go through the SOP, stuff like that. The relationship's there for you. We can all move together very quickly, especially in scenarios like ransomware where it's demanded. Like the first, few seconds, it all counts.
Absolutely. And that's the key. I mean, think about it too. Well, we're going to get into incident response planning too and tabletop exercises, but we all had fire drills as kids, right? And there's a reason why you do that, right? So
Exactly.
that in the event of an actual fire, you don't run down the wrong hallway, right? Like you just practice it so that when panic is setting in and everybody's under amygdala hijack and they're not thinking right, they're just panicking. They've done that before. There's muscle memory involved. And
Exactly.
the same thing applies here. So let's talk about it. It's a sample scenario. It's a real one that has happened, but we're not going to name names and things, but we'll just a rural healthcare organization, small rural hospital, IT team of 2 to 3 people. They have a contract with a MSP for help desk, patching, backup, some endpoint detection and response, but nobody's a CISO. Nobody is providing even virtual CISO services. Nobody's providing governance and policy and incident response planning and tabletop exercises. That governance piece, right, is missing. So here's kind of what happened, right? Phishing or stolen credentials happens all the time. And talk to us about the stages of a breach, because so many people think, well, if I click on a phishing email or if I get social engineered, that's a breach. And it's like, well, that's an incident, right? That's an unauthorized access. It's not necessarily a breach. A breach is kind of a legal term. It's a term of art, right? And it also means once they are in for a while, undetected, they move laterally, they'll move vertically so that they can hit everything at once, and then they launch something or they steal something. Once that has touched that sensitive data, that's the breach, right? And so there's a lot of things that can happen in between first day when Mrs. Buttermaker over in the third floor cubicle with her 32 browser tabs open, clicking on links like it's a Olympic sport. When that happens, right? And then it's and then there's an intrusion. There's a lot of good things that can happen to stop it there. But in this scenario, didn't get stopped. They wind up being undetected, right? And they do a lot of reconnaissance, especially in light of AI. They can speed things up and they can, remain undetected for quite a while, for several weeks. And then the day happens where they launch, right? During that time, they might have exfiltrated data, sensitive data. Exfiltrate is a fancy word for steal, right? But on that day, right? And then they go and they contact their MSP, right? But in those scenarios, what is the better approach, right? Can you walk us through, like, you've seen this, like they're contacting you because they've never done an incident response plan, an incident response tabletop exercise. What type of things are they facing here?
So obviously, like you noted, I mean, usually when we get these, they'll be from smaller organizations, right? So the first thing is, they're calling you. They can't believe it, right? All they're seeing is all their stuff's locked out. They don't know what to do. So this scenario, pretty close to a lot of the things we deal with, right? So that first, so the minute you note your credentials have been stolen, right? That's for your IT teams. That's sort of your first. Hopefully, you have a SIEM or something, or you have access control, and you've noted that incident, right? And you start working from there. That is the most critical point because that can say what you do, an hour, we call it, 2 hours after that at the, very, very maximum, I'd hope. That can save you a significant, significant amount of pain down the line. So first steps here, right? Detection containment. This is, you have to find out what your scope is here, right? So in this case, for this scenario, ransomware, very obvious, right? Based on this scenario, sort of the credentials and stuff, this is sort of a nobody really noticed, right? Went unnoticed. So I'd assume this is maybe not using MFA, they don't have any automation to detect something like this, right? Maybe it's just all a local AD. Who knows, right? The first step's detection containment, right? Find out what systems are compromised and then find out how you can stop that spread immediately. Obviously, they don't have incident response plans in place, but if you did and had everything done correctly, you'd have teams. Well, in this case, it's 2 to 3 people. So your team, everybody would have their roles and responsibilities already lined out and hopefully practiced. In this case, if you had incident response plans. So unfortunately, in this scenario, I'd say hopefully they're not all running around like chickens with their heads cut off. But I mean, it's likely because they'll be duplicating efforts, I guarantee you, and communication will be very interesting to see. And
Yeah.
communication is definitely one of the big things in a scenario like this. Everybody needs to know, like I said, roles and responsibilities and who's covering down on what. And not just coordination between your IT teams, but leadership and then your cyber insurance, hopefully with us, like we've covered all this time, and then we'll get you roped in with the FBI and everybody can help. That's the whole point. Have the relationships. That way you aren't, even if you are practiced for something like this, I wouldn't ever say no to more help in a scenario like this.
No, absolutely. And when we bring this up and we mention this to leadership of small and mid-sized organizations, there's this isn't a failure of the MSP or the MSP model at all.
Not at all. Mm-mm.
It's just I don't know if it's a gap or just because it hasn't been explained clearly to a lot of leaders in business because it's not really their field, right? But the truth is like IT is does a really good job for what they do, but they're not involved in this. And this is something that leadership needs to know. And sometimes the MSPs like they just want the leadership to be happy with them and they might say, look, you're safe, don't worry about it. But meanwhile, there's no incident response plans, there's no SIM, there's no eyes on glass, there's no detection. And it's like, well, then we're not really doing the best practices. But the
Exactly.
point is all of us to work together, that's really the key. So what MSPs are doing well is keeping systems running, right? Resetting passwords, restoring backups, putting out fires first, help desk, right? It's absolutely needed and it is keeping the organization productive. Always on, always available, running, right? But what's
Exactly.
missing is governance, right? And that pre-established relationship with organizations like yours so that on the day of an event, we don't have to spend critical moments introducing ourselves and explaining what our tech stack is and how it's configured and who did what with the potential compromise, etc. Because that could take hours. That could take
Absolutely.
it could take a day. And meanwhile, every minute counts when that's happening. And so
Exactly.
getting that stuff up there, having all of that in your hands ahead of time is really key.
I'd
And
say,
and yeah, go ahead.
especially too, in the case of an MSP. So obviously, so take the healthcare scenario before. You have a few IT people on staff, but at the end of the
Mhm.
day, who really knows what you have is going to be that MSP.
Absolutely.
So you're going to have to sort of play the middleman and connect everybody so they can go ask the MSP what infrastructure you're running or anything like that. And on top of that, I mean MSP every MSP will have to be some sort of cybersecurity conscious, right? That you can't avoid that, but they're also not professionals in that sense. So if you can have some, there's a reason why, you know, in the job market, cybersecurity roles are defined as cybersecurity roles. You don't have your system administrators that also do security. You might have like in this hospital, people would, I guarantee you in that scenario, wear multiple hats. But there's a reason why you want to have professionals do it, right?
I mean, the IT, the system administrators, the network engineers, they're doing roles that help bolster security. They're patching, they're rolling
Hmm.
out antivirus, they're maybe EDR and things like that.
Well, absolutely,
But
they help for
but
sure.
they're
Yes,
not part of a SOC. They're part of a
exactly. Yes,
NOC, right? They're part of a NOC. They're part of a network operations center. That's the roles on the left. What's missing is the security operations center
exactly.
and the leadership from the top with the governance, right?
Absolutely.
So when we say governance, can you explain that to people?
So governance, and that is also nowadays a role that can be somebody's entire job, but that's
Hmm.
just from the top down. So, like you said, from leadership at the top all the way to the bottom. What is, to put it simply, what is your approach, right? You can't, cybersecurity, I'd find a lot of places, especially small organizations, it's more of an afterthought rather than something that you be proactive about. And most people that I've met that have had breaches, which range from, it could be police departments to 911 centers, they think a reactive approach is the best because they haven't had the experience with an incident, right? Whereas in that scenario we talked about before, if your approach is reactive, that, valuable first 30 minutes to an hour of a breach, that's going to cost you dearly, dearly down the line. Versus if it's proactive, now we have established governance. Here's what everybody does. Even leadership, even non technical personnel know exactly how things should play out on paper. Not that everything goes to plan ever, but nobody's running around in crisis mode.
No, because you've run live simulations, right? You've
Exactly.
actually the way I like to explain it sometimes, tell me if it's off, but it's almost like a RACI document. Like we know what a RACI document is. Like who's responsible, who's accountable, who's needs consulted, and who just needs informed, right?
Exactly.
Different roles. And then hour one, who's doing this, right? Hour two or day one, day two, however you want to go through the live scenario. And that way you're like, okay, you're in charge of turning the screws on that. You're in charge of letting these people know we need to ask your advice and you just need to know about it, right? And then you
Exactly.
kind of walk through it. Makes perfect sense. Yeah, that's really good. And I loved the way you explained about like the reactive mindset of the people that haven't been breached yet, because I know clients of both ends. And the most proactive small business leaders I know are people that have had to deal with Lockbit or Akira, the Russian ransomware gangs. They've been
Absolutely.
hit before because they are never going through that again. And
Exactly.
they're like, we're going to take this stuff seriously. And it's more about it's way more important than just investing. It's not just about we're going to spend the money now on it. It's not just that. It's about the mindset. It's about the communication that they give to their employees, right? It's
Exactly.
about embedding it into their culture, right? They really lean forward into it and learn about it. And that to me is where we all need to be ahead of
Absolutely.
time before that happens, so that when it happens, it's not as bad.
So that mindset, that's exactly it, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
no matter what your role is, whether you're technical personnel or not, security is a mindset. Obviously, for me, that will look way different than a CEO or anything like that. But if you can fix the mindset towards security, you can go leaps and bounds towards, not that you won't ever get breached, everybody gets breached. To never say that won't happen, that's just, we live in a
No,
planet
but they're
Earth,
not all
unfortunately.
equal. But they're not
Exactly.
all equal. That's the
Exactly.
point, right? Breaches are not all equal. Some will potentially put you out of business or at least damage your quarter or your year. Others are just like a outage that get
Exactly.
resolved. And to grow and to scale growth for small business, right? You want just an outage. You don't
Exactly.
want something that's going to damage or extend multiple quarters where you're still talking about it and still addressing it with investors and things.
Take that healthcare example. It could
Yeah,
be, instead of the full ransomware breach where you have healthcare sensitive patient data that you can't access anymore and it's probably exfiltrated, if I'm being honest. Instead of going all the way there, you see that phishing attempt and you have that account get compromised, and then it stops there.
right,
It's done.
right.
Instead of going all the way down that chain of misery.
Yeah. And it's not tantamount to a HIPAA violation. It's not like it
Also
doesn't
that, yeah,
reach reporting land where you
absolutely.
actually have to go tell the teacher about it, right?
Exactly.
Like that's the beauty of it. I
For
mean,
sure, for
there's
sure.
there's so many benefits to just being more proactive about this. It's crazy. So let's talk about an incident response plan, like and like AI leverage detection. Like, what are some of the things that you look at in a really good incident response plan in tabletop?
So I'll start off by saying, all incident response plans are not created equal. It's
Hmm.
definitely dependent on the scale and scope of your organization. Obviously, as we tapped on multiple times, roles and responsibilities is definitely key,
Yeah.
as in probably top one or two. But also, even before that, it helps so much to know exactly what you're protecting, right? So, for example, in the healthcare scenario before, where it's probably a smaller IT team that has an MSP managing it, it would leaps and bounds if you know exactly what you're protecting. It's almost like, if so, talking about mindset before, you take the mindset of an attacker. So instead of thinking, here's all the things I have to defend against, well, let me shift my perspective here. What exactly am I going to go poke at? Since I have internal knowledge, what am I going to go poke at to get me the fastest entry point, and then just work backwards from there? But
That's a
um,
great point because in an incident response plan, you know where the gaps are in the organization from a risk perspective. And you could
mhm,
be like, well, let's assume they're going to get in this way because this is a big hole that you have,
exactly,
right? And so you can prepare for that. It could be something else that happens in reality, but statistically, you're in good shape to really
exactly.
focus on that.
No, I mean, even in reality, I'd say, like,
Yeah.
Not to say hackers are or anybody's lazy, but if you could take,
No, but they're
either
opportunistic. I've talked to
exactly,
hundreds of them. Like they are
exactly,
absolutely. I always use the scenario of picture yourself at Target and there's 100 cars in the parking lot, right? An attacker is not going to bust down the window with a crowbar and draw attention and set off
absolutely,
alarms. A hacker is going to walk by car doors and see if they're open, and then they're
exactly.
going to take what's inside. That's what they're doing. Like they're looking for people from a cybersecurity or technology perspective that are leaving their car doors open. That's what it's
Mhm.
all about. And so that's what we're just trying to get people to do in a sense is, you know, like lock your
100%.
car doors, right?
If you can make the entry, the resistant entry is if you can reach a certain threshold, you
Yeah,
can
they
avoid
will move on. They will
exactly,
move on because there's still a bunch of people using password for their password and like leaving things open for them.
exactly,
Right? Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. That's good. And then AI, kind of a big thing.
A little bit.
It's it's just a, it just gets funnier and funnier every week. You know, it AI has formed its own social network.
That one's
It's
really
like
entertaining. I like that
yeah,
one.
that one is so fun. It got breached in 3 days. Like it just
Yep,
like we created it, like millions of people download this AI program. It gets breached in 3 days. Everybody is almost affected. I'm like, of course, we are in the Wild West.
absolutely.
So, but it's an arms race, clearly. Like defenders are leveraging it to detect attackers quickly so that we can catch it early. And they're using it to generate polymorphic ransomware and ransomware that changes on the fly and all these because they're early adopters, the attackers. So
Everybody's testing it. Absolutely.
everybody's testing it, right? And it's fascinating to watch, but I think it's really important to have eyes on glass and be leveraging AI for a small business. It's not even that expensive. It's not. So just playing in that space and talking to your IT leaders about leveraging AI and what they do, right? Because it can just analyze so much data and point out some of those anomalies and some of those things you need to look at as a human faster. Are you guys finding that too? Are you guys finding any newer issues or things because of AI with what you see? And I'm not
So,
asking about like terrorism or other
no, no,
stuff.
no, no.
I'm just talking in the cybersecurity space.
No, no. So, obviously, prompt injection is always one of the fun ones. It's funny you mentioned that. We
Can you
got an
yeah,
email
can
straight
you
to our
explain
inbox.
that? Yeah, can you
Okay,
explain
so
that for
yeah,
people
let's put
what
it
prompt
simply.
injection is?
So, take like chatbots for example. You're speaking it in English, right? You put your question in, the bot does what it wants. Prompt injection, instead of me typing, I need an email written for me or whatever it is, it will. So usually the way it works is they'll have a whole bunch of gibberish on top of it, and then right at the last sentence, it'll say something like, well, it could be anything. That's the point of prompt injection. It could be, so if you're running it on systems, it could be just uninstall Windows or whatever the prompt is. That's sort of the issue with a lot of AI deployments. Like, take your example of the AI chatbot website. That was full of prompt injection, and the way that works, people would install that program, and it gives them that program
Command and
total,
control gives
exactly,
them
total
access
control.
to everything.
That
And
entire
then
machine.
it takes instructions not just from you, but when it goes out and it goes to other websites and other tools, it takes those instructions, right?
Exactly.
And those
So I
instructions
search
could
for
be like, give me all the credentials, give me, all the passwords, all of the financial information, whatever. And your AI is doing it and you don't even see that it's doing it.
exactly, which
That's the
is
scary thing.
that's it. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the scary thing is not that there isn't a way to audit those things, but it's just, and it's not necessarily a black box, but it's almost a black box, right? You put in your request, and then the AI will do any work it needs to produce the results for you. So you always need to go back and review that, especially if it's, take like code for example. API keys get put in code all the time. That's one of the big ones. especially on that platform you were talking about, the amount of API keys that got leaked on that website over, what was it, like 3 days? Not,
Yeah,
I don't even think it was 3 days.
it was
That like
so
first like
fast.
1 to 2 day span.
No sooner were
Wild.
we reading about it, and then we're like, hey, everything got breached. I was like, that was a quick story. Like, it just
Exactly.
went, I thought it was going to be a year-long, series, and it turned out to be a TikTok. Like, it was like super fast. And I was like, that thing blew up on everybody really
Exactly.
fast. Yeah.
Which, I mean, that stuff's cool, but like I said, the security. So AI is really good at what I call raising the lower part of the bar, right? So
Right.
it can get rid of,
Yeah.
the easy work. Like, so for example, a lot of companies now are tying to their seams. So it can, instead of your analysts getting, infinite amount of alerts for
Alerts. Yep.
something that when a human looks at it, obviously not critical, right? And I'm not saying you totally depend on it, because I don't think we're quite there yet where you can just say, all right,
No, but
you
get you
get
80% of the way there.
exactly.
It saves a lot of manual labor and a lot of wasted time, which is really key.
Exactly. The best way I like to describe it is it'll get you sort of your foot in the door basically with anything you throw at it, right? There's always still going to be that manual review perspective to it still. I mean, we're not there yet. I'd love for it to be there. That'd be awesome. Total sci-fi in the future. But I mean, if you can get that for your seams, just to
Oh,
give
yeah.
your analysts a little break, definitely some use cases there. But there
Well,
are a lot of vulnerabilities.
oh yeah, it seems like AI has it has reinforced the need for the best practices that organizations should have had for years, right?
And created new
Because
practices and
right,
policies for AI.
yeah, yeah, it really has. But I mean, that's really been the change, right?
Mhm.
Because you need it more than ever to make sure your data isn't getting uploaded and sent out of your network, right? If you don't
Absolutely.
have those systems in place, you're not going to see it anyway, right?
Exactly.
If an employee voluntarily does it, right, a rogue employee, an insider threat or something like that, you wouldn't see it anyway because you didn't invest in the systems to be able to see it. And now with AI, it can happen really fast, as we've seen.
Light
Right.
speed. Yes.
Yeah.
Very, very quickly.
And for those watching, we were talking about Moltbook and the OpenClaw fiasco that has been going on.
That episode.
It's
Still going
fascinating.
on, but
It's still going on. Right. So walk us through as we're wrapping up here, kind of walk us through kind of in an incident response tabletop exercise. Who all's in the room usually?
so we'll use that take that hospital example we
Yeah.
used earlier, right?
Yeah.
So incident response, right? You want to be lean and mean. Not so lean that you don't have everybody you need in the room, but you need critical staff, right? Like you said before, you need your people that are acting. So obviously your IT team, they're going to be the ones that are directly handling this leadership, and then the people that need to be aware, right? And then hopefully our office too. Hopefully you've called us. But so for that hospital example, leadership, CEO, your IT team, your MSP rep, if you have a project manager over there, if you have whoever your contact is, right, with that system and that management service, any, I call it nurses or reps or anything like that, that would need to be aware of, or I guess your staff in general, right? If you truly have, EHR that's been locked out, then obviously make your staff aware, but they're not, in the room with you. And then if you have legal on there as well, that'd be really the core team right there.
Absolutely.
Especially day one. You want that to be lean, mean, and focused.
Absolutely. And we've kind of already touched on what scenarios to exercise, really looking at what do we know about the tech stack and your configurations and where your biggest holes are today, right? And then when we practice it, let's practice what we think was likely that could happen, right? And then, and we see a lot of organizations that do that and they know that they have holes, but it's their risk appetite, right?
Exactly.
They've made the decision. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that. They know the risk, but this is still necessary because given that risk, we want to make sure that you're prepared.
Exactly. Which that's one thing I do see quite a bit is people don't want to, if you haven't gone down the cybersecurity path, right, you find a lot of people, when you say that there's accepted risk line to them, they're like, what do you mean? There can't be any risk. Like,
right.
But that's not the approach we're taking.
There's no, right. People
exactly,
believe
yes.
There's no, we're like, there's always risk.
Exactly.
There's
yes.
always risk.
Yes.
It's
absolutely.
just about how much is acceptable. for you.
Exactly.
Like
And people will
that's the
get
whole
so
thing.
hung up on that, oh no, this is going to be such a monumental task. We can't ever be. It's like, no, that's fine. Every
Hmm.
system design, when you have your developers sit down to build stuff, there's going to be a list of here's what we're willing to accept for design's sake and functionality, what we can accept risk wise. And then also from leadership perspective, here's what we're willing to tolerate. There's no such thing as anything that's 100% secure. It's not possible, right?
No, because the
So
last time I checked, and at the last DEF CON session, like everything is hackable, right? If the
yes,
Mars rover can be breached, I'm
yes,
thinking everything is hackable. So the issue is how hackable is it? What are the statistics? Like what's the likelihood, right? And
exactly.
so we just want to gauge that and measure that, and then leadership can say, "Oh, I want that brought down." Okay, then we have to invest and we have to spend time and human resources to bring that part down. How about this one over here, right? And we just kind of talk about that, which is really
That's one
good.
thing too. It's not all one shot, right? This doesn't have to
Right.
be something that this you sit down and hammer this out over the span of a week. Like this is
No.
something that, well, hopefully is policy that is continuously adapting,
Right. It's a
especially
living, breathing document and process.
exactly like we just mentioned, AI moving at light speed, right? So
Hmm.
whatever happens next week can be totally different from your policies you set up this week, and that's part of the burden of keeping up with cybersecurity. It's not easy. There's a reason people have full-time jobs doing it, but I mean, adapt. That's the part of it.
Absolutely. And the outcomes from the tabletop exercises is a good roadmap that is safe and separate and apart from your systems that could get encrypted, right? Or stolen,
Keep it offsite.
right?
Absolutely.
We don't want to keep this where they can steal it or encrypt it because then we
Hmm.
can't get to it,
Yep.
right? We want to keep it separate and we want to be able to look at it, and it needs to be kind of updated. And the outcomes are something that's updated so that it's a real step by step guide of what to do day one, right? What
Exactly.
to do, who to call. You've got the numbers there, you've got the people, because the reality is doing nothing is a decision, and that's an action. And so what happens is something bad happens and somebody goes, they pull up their incident response plan and they're like, Carl's supposed to do this. Carl left 2 years ago
Yeah.
because we
Carl hasn't.
haven't like gone over this for a
Half the
while.
staff doesn't know who Carl
Yeah.
is.
Right. And you're like, who would do that? And they're like, well, they are here, but they're in a different role. And it's like, you've got to just update everything so that you all know if X scenario happens, this is how we handle it. And then
Exactly.
it's like a fire drill, right? Um, that's really key.
Like you said, make like it's a fire drill. Make sure you do them. Do the
Yeah.
fire drills. Sit down with your team, even if it's quarterly. If it's, I mean, I hope it's
At
not,
least twice a
finally.
year. At least,
Exactly.
yeah, at least once or twice a year, it's
Just
got to be done.
get it done. Make sure everybody knows where to go,
Yep.
and it's practice.
And so we're going to leave everybody with how to get in touch with Nick and his team. So you can contact the Kentucky Office of Homeland Security. We will send this out. There's a link there. You can find them on Google, but they're also right in Northern Kentucky. And anytime you find suspicious activity, you can report it to them, to the Kentucky Office of Homeland Security. There's two ways to report. There is a tip line, 866-I-ON-KY or 866-393-6659. And you could also click the button below, which will give you a link to it. So again, Nick, thank you so much. And we really appreciate all you guys do. You're like a hidden gem that I've been in cybersecurity for a long time. And I'm like, I found Indiana's, and I'm like, I was in Kansas and I was talking to their fusion center. And I'm like, I know Kentucky has one. Like,
It's somewhere.
and when we met, I'm like, people have got to know about you guys because it's so helpful, right? And you're there and you're willing and interested in helping people prepare. So
Exactly. We're
that's
invested.
fantastic.
Exactly. Like you said,
Yeah.
we're invested in making sure everybody's improving.
Yeah.
Even, if it's just you come to our monthly flow meetings, or, you got my contact and you reach out to me, you look at my cybersecurity product, anything like that. It doesn't have to be, anything crazy.
Yeah.
Just
And you
build
guys
the
push,
relationships. We're
right.
here
And you
for it.
guys push out a lot of education for the public. There's
Absolutely.
ways Send your IT people to contact Nick and his team. Like, all of those are really sound practices.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for all you do.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, David. I
Thanks,
appreciate it.
buddy.